What if it rained food? What if Earth was a cube? What if we had 9 lives? What if bits could fly? It's absurd. If money grew on trees, if we didn't have knees, if we walked through life slightly magnetical, it's absurd. Absurd Hypotheticals.
Hello everybody and welcome to Absurd Hypotheticals, the show where we overthink dumb questions so you don't have to. I'm your host Marcus Lehner, and I'm joined here today by Chris Yee and Ben Storms. Say hi, guys.
Hey, I'm Chris.
Hey, I'm Ben.
Welcome everybody to the year 2019.
To the year
the best
2019.
year that ends in 19 that we've had for a while. At least 100 years. I'm not sure what 1919
you don't know
was
if
like.
this is better than the last 19 year.
That's
What
true.
was going on in 1919? Was that still...
We were shortly after World War One, I want to say.
The chances are it's better.
So probably better.
1919, the creation of the Italian Nationalist Fascist Party. Benito Mussolini establishes the Fascist Party in 1919.
No parallels to modern day life I can find. Cool,
Who knows,
guys.
man? This might not be topical in 2 to 3 weeks when it comes out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I started this new year with doing my favorite thing, which is learning about things, which is why we do this whole podcast, so I can learn random facts about random shit.
Yep.
But this one does not fit into any of our hypothetical questions, so I was just going to share this knowledge with all of you. And this was, I found out that basically all, like, the common idioms we use, not only are they wrong, they also mean something completely different than the original phrase. So they're all missing, like, half of it. Like the second half, that changes the whole meaning of the whole idiom. The one that most people know, for example, is great minds think alike, which is like, oh, hey, yeah, we are agreeing, which must mean we're right. But the actual full phrase is great minds think alike, but fools rarely differ. And so the actual meaning of the idiom is just because people are agreeing with you, it doesn't mean you're right. Because you could all just be idiots.
Interesting.
Next one. Curiosity killed the cat. Obviously means don't stick your head in shit or else it's gonna get murdered. Actual phrase, curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back.
Wait, what?
So whatever it found, it was like miraculous.
So basically, like, yeah, you'll get hurt if you're curious, but like, don't let that stop you. Like, you need to be curious. Get fucked because you're gonna be even happier that you did.
Right.
Again, like, exactly the opposite message. So I don't know what happened to these phrases that they changed like this.
I mean, it's hard to remember a lot of words. So, like, you know, you get the snappy start and kind of just, like, tail off there. I get it.
I mean, that's definitely true for this next one. The phrase, blood is thicker than water.
It is thicker than water.
So is toothpaste.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's list every
things.
fluid we can think of that's thicker than water, which is any water with stuff dissolved in it, so it's a lot.
Yep.
Every liquid.
But no, the phrase is not blood is thicker than water. The original is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb.
Okay.
Which, instead of saying, hey, family ties are the strongest, it's, no, the people you choose to hang out with are the strongest bonds, and your family is just whatever. I think this one specifically often is referred to as, it says the blood of the covenant, but I've seen a lot of versions where it's like the blood that's shared, like spilling blood in battle and war and things.
Right.
It's thicker than the water of the womb, so it's like, you know, your battle buddies are a stronger bond than your family.
Battle buddies.
Your battle buddies. Which is my new term for the entire army, is just battle buddies. Feel free to take me up on that one, government. You can have it for free of charge. Actually, 0.01% royalties to me from the military budget. That would be great.
Oh.
So $17 million.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable rate.
Yeah.
I got 3 more. So next one. Jack of all trades, master of none. Which usually is meant to say, yeah, I mean, you're okay at all this stuff, but you really got to focus on something if you want to be worth anything. But the actual thing is, jack of all trades, master of none, but better than a master of one. So it's like, learn how to do a lot of shit, be good at a lot of shit. It's more helpful than being very, very good at one thing and being terrible at the rest of your life.
The thing is, a lot of people just say jack of all trades. They don't even say jack of all trades, master of none.
Well, yeah, so it's lost even further meaning.
Yeah, well, it's like reverted back to its original meaning, sort of.
Yeah, unintentionally. We've condensed it to its original meaning.
I like this next one. Birds of a feather flock together. It doesn't have a strong meaning. It's kind of just like, yeah, people who are like, you know, end up hanging out.
Like finds like.
Yeah. But the full one is, birds of a feather flock together until the cat comes.
That gets dark.
So basically, it's like, yeah, people that are kind of like you, they'll hang out and be nice and everything.
Until you get murdered.
Until shit goes down, and then they're just like fucking peacing out.
Right.
Which I don't get exactly how it means. I guess it means don't trust anybody who's like you.
That's a pretty cynical and I guess the idea is like superficial commonalities don't actually make
that's probably what it
friendships.
means.
Yeah.
And I saved my favorite one for last, which is the early bird catches the worm. And this one's pretty standard. It's like, get up early, get your shit done.
Yep.
The full phrase is the early bird catches the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese.
Yeah, I knew that one. I like that one a lot.
Which, again, is like, it does mean something totally different. It's like, hey, let somebody else jump off the cliff first to see if they survive. But I feel like both messages are like both valid, you know?
Right.
Like they're both good
valid.
advice, but different.
I mean, the mouse part doesn't invalidate the bird part.
I guess it depends on whether you're,
A bird or a mouse.
Well, I mean, you can use it like the bird and the worm too, I guess, to an extent. Like which side of this equation you fall on.
Yeah, which really makes it unhelpful as an idiom of just general wisdom. Because if I have to decide whether I'm a bird or a mouse, like metaphorically in my given situation, I could just learn how to make good decisions without these shortcuts.
I'm a bird. I'm definitely a bird.
But yeah, this kind of blew my mind. Just not because the phrases had different origins, but because like they all had completely like opposite meanings. If you take out half the sentence, like they took out the big butts in the middle.
We should create our own idiom and then half it so that it loses meaning.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's worth anything unless you can do it like a couple like decades down the line. So because you have to get an idiom established, you have to. There's a lot of groundwork here.
Yeah, you have to build its popularity.
Yeah. Got to build your brand.
To eat your cereal. I don't have a finish to that. It's open-ended.
to eat your cereal. We've cut it in half first, and then we'll find the second half later.
Yeah.
It'll get meaning. It'll get a deep philosophical meaning, and people are going to tell their kids it all the time. But I think something people also tell their kids all the time is about our great answers to this next podcast question, which is, what if the population of each country swapped? Chris, do you want to start us off with this one?
Yes, so I looked at probably the most obvious part of this question is...
Well, you want to talk about how we swapped them first?
Oh, yeah. So the way we swapped them is we took the most populous countries and the least populous countries, and they just swapped. So number one and number last.
330, whatever.
Yeah.
233. I want to make it clear we use the UN database of how many countries there are, because apparently it's not established how many fucking countries there are in the world.
Yeah.
Depending on who you ask, especially on the lower end of the spectrum, which was particularly important to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first and the last on that list swap populations. The second and the second to last swap populations, and so on, just in the entire world. So that's how we did this question. And I specifically looked at China, the population of China, going in, because they're the biggest, going into Vatican City, which is technically a country.
How'd they fit, Chris?
Yeah, so obviously China has a huge population, and obviously Vatican City is super, super tiny, which is why they call it city.
And not country.
Technically, the country is actually the Holy See. I think it's kind of complicated how it's referred to.
Yeah.
It's it's called the Holy See, but then the Vatican City is a city-state. I don't even know. But it's
technically a country.
Exactly.
What if we just call it Pope Town from here on out?
Yeah, Popeville, Italy.
Yeah, so the population of China is 1.4 billion people. And then Vatican City is...
You mean Popeville?
Yeah. I'm not gonna call it that.
Commit!
Vatican City is 0.17 square miles, or 4.7 million square feet.
That number sounds at least a little bigger.
Yeah, because there's a million in there. Until you reach the feet part.
Right.
So with these numbers, the density of, the population density in Vatican City would be 8.3 billion people per square mile, which that's kind of hard to picture, but it means that every person has half of a square inch.
Oh, no. And that's super tiny, because that's that's not even a half a square. That's not even an inch in length, because it's a square inch. So it's a quarter.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a small area.
It's smaller than the square foot area of a person.
Yeah. So in order to try to, because what I'm going to do is try to fit all these people into Vatican City, I started looking at obviously the first solution is to build like a building and have like multiple stories. So I looked at the biggest building in the world, which is the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. And this is 2,722 feet tall and it has 163 floors. So I wanted to see how many people this could hold. So I said that each person needs a minimum of around like 10 square feet. That's being generous, but I want to be generous.
Well, yeah, we wouldn't want to squeeze them too tight and make their lives miserable here, Chris. This is a new year. You got to turn over a new leaf and
I'm trying to be better.
Make everyone sad.
So with 10 square feet for everyone, the floor space in the Burj Khalifa is 3.6 million square feet. So that means the Burj Khalifa can hold 360,000 people, which is 0.025% of China's population.
Okay.
So next thing I wanted to see was, okay, that's just one Burj Khalifa though. How many Burj Khalifas can we fit in Vatican City?
Important questions.
Yeah. So in order to answer that question, I had to figure out what the base of, like how big the base of the Burj Khalifa is. And that was kind of difficult to find just because whenever you search the Burj Khalifa, they don't talk about the base, they just talk about the height. So I kind of had to make something up a little bit. So I so I had the total square footage, like floor space square footage of the Burj Khalifa. And I saw that the building, it sort of like tapers from the bottom and it goes to like a point at top. So I took the average floor area and I doubled that just because it angles down. So the base is going to be bigger than the average.
Right. Seems reasonable.
So with that methodology, I found that the base was 44,000 square feet. And that means that you can fit 106 Burj Khalifas in Vatican City. So with 106 Burj Khalifas, you can hold 38.2 million people, which is definitely a step up, but it's still only 2.7% of China's population. So next, I started looking at the taper that I was talking about of the Burj Khalifa. That's kind of a problem because it doesn't really use the space that efficiently because you use a lot of ground space and then you're not using the space up higher. So I started looking at other tall buildings, and the second tallest building in the world is the Shanghai Tower, which is 2,073 feet tall, and it's 128 floors. And it actually has more floor space than the Burj Khalifa is, 4 million square feet of floor space. And it doesn't have as much of a taper either. So I figured out the base of that, and it turns out that you can fit more Shanghai towers than the Burj Khalifa. You can fit 150 Shanghai towers. So that means you can hold 60 million people.
That's still not quite enough, Chris.
It's not enough
I can't
people.
help but notice.
It's 4.2% of China's population. So it's closer. At this point, I was getting a little pessimistic. So I reduced my 10 square feet per person to 4. So now everyone gets 4 square feet per person.
2 foot by 2 foot box. Enjoy.
Yeah. You can fit in that.
I mean, standing up.
Yeah. That's all you need to do.
You can sit.
I don't think you can
cross-legged.
You could. Yeah,
you can
cross-legged.
Sit cross-legged.
You can fit in 2 by 2. And with this, the 150 Shanghai towers can hold 150 million people, which is 10% of China's population. So that's where I kind of hit the limit of people above ground. But then I started looking below ground because that is a thing, building structures below ground.
The submerged Khalifa.
Yeah, so there are things called like underground cities, and in Toronto, they have a thing called PATH. It's like an acronym. I don't know what it stands for. PATH, but it's basically a network of walkways, and it's, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, it's the largest underground shopping complex in the world, and it has a floor space of 4 million square feet. And then I think it's only 1 story, but I actually couldn't find information on that for some reason. But in Montreal, there's another similar type of structure, and it's called the Réseau, and it's pretty much the same size, but that one is multi-story. So you can have multiple stories of this, And I wanted to see how many stories you could have. So in order to figure this out, I need to figure out how deep we can actually go into the ground. So I looked at the deepest structure in the world that we've ever built. And it's actually also in China. China builds a lot of big things, I guess.
Well, they got to fit all those billions of people, which we're finding out now is a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
So the Jingping Underground Laboratory, I actually didn't write down where exactly in China it is, but it's built 7,900 feet below ground.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's very, very low. And that's where they do like a bunch of experiments and stuff to like minimize the amount of radiation, like atmospheric radiation.
Oh, gotcha. Some of that like particle physics stuff.
Yeah. And it's not that, I mean, it's not huge, but it's not tiny either. It's 78,000 square feet. But I think if we built a structure that low, we can build like an underground city type of thing that deep too and just have multiple stories. Might be a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to say we could do it.
I mean, I think you can dig a hole better than you can go up.
Yeah, I would say so too. So if we take the entire area of Vatican City and make that all like what they have in Toronto or Montreal, and we have multiple stories, you can actually fit, if you assume 16 feet high ceilings, you can fit 494 floors going that deep into the ground. So with the area of Vatican City going that deep with that many floors, we can hold 580 million people, which
You're
is
kidding.
Okay.
a much better improvement. That's 41% of the population in China. So that's underground. And then above ground, we have 10% of the population. So it's 51% of the population. What are we going to do with the other half? So I kind of ran out of space and I almost gave up. But then I started looking at their vacation habits. Apparently China, their traveling out of country habits are like really booming right now. And they, like in the future, they're going to be like way higher. So China has 156 million overseas travels per year, and that's growing. That's 1,000% growth since the year 2000. And then the China Outbound Tourism Research Institute predicts that by the year 2030, that number is going to be at 400 million per year of people just going out of the country for travel. So 400 million, that's a lot of people. That could help. So, like, if they're not in Vatican City, they could be traveling somewhere else, and then they could come back and they could, like, swap out. Yeah?
Yeah, I'll buy it. I'll dig. I imagine people are going to go on vacation even more considering where they live in their 4 square feet.
Yeah.
Right.
The thing is, the 400 million people, that's per year, and they're not going to be gone for the whole year. So if you spread that out through the year, assuming like an average of like 2 weeks, 2-week-long vacations, that's only, at a given time, only 15 million people are going to be on vacation, which doesn't help that much. But that whole idea of having a whole part of the population out of the country and the rest of them are in there and then swapping out, that got me thinking that we can fit half of the population in Vatican City. So half can be in Vatican City and then half can be out working or doing their job or something. They're going to have to work internationally, so they're going to need like a work visa or something. They're probably going to be working in Rome.
The commute's a bitch.
Yeah. And then it's just like a 12-hour cycle. So when they're done with their work, then they swap out and the other half of the population goes out to work and then that population sleeps. And it's just like a day-night cycle. There'll be a day shift and a night shift. And that's how you make it work.
So you get to live in the country for half of the time.
Yeah. That's the only way you can make it work. That we're out of space. I can't reduce it to 2 square feet per person, though. You can't fit.
Right.
I have I probably can't fit too many people on this, but I was going to suggest space blimps, where you just have blimps on top of blimps on top of blimps on top of blimps on top of blimps. All the way up.
I considered trying to like have some sort of flying structure, but I felt like that wasn't sustainable. You can't just have something floating in the air forever.
Right.
And I don't know how far, like technically how high up the territory of the country goes. Like once you're in space, you're not in the country anymore, right?
Oh, there's actually a limit. I could look it up, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. But I don't think that's really a good solution. So I didn't look into that.
So, yeah, you kind of fit them.
You can sort of fit them. A lot of that stuff that I said doesn't work, but you can fit them.
I also like the idea that half the population of China will be working a job and effectively just roam.
Yeah, pretty much.
At all times.
Yep.
I just like how you went down 400. You went down like over a mile into the ground, and you still did not have enough space.
I know.
I will say, you said you gave them 16-foot ceilings.
Yeah, 16.
That seems excessive.
Yeah, I could have made it smaller. I just looked up the average ceiling height.
Fair enough.
But Ben, you looked at the other side of that equation, didn't you?
Yes, I did. So I took the population of Vatican City and put it in China. This, as you might imagine, was less complicated than the other way around.
China has 100% more popes.
Well, yeah, we'll get to popes. So the population, the Vatican City is as we mentioned, the lowest population of any country in the world. The estimated population of Vatican City by the latest UN estimate is 805.
Wait, estimated population? Can't they just actually count them?
I could
here's
go
the
there
thing.
and count them.
Here's the thing is that, so I was using like the UN database on all of this, and all of them are estimated population, which I did find really funny in the context of Vatican City because it's like a reasonably like large high school. Like
It's like a jar of jelly beans. They have to estimate.
Exactly, yeah.
They can't count them.
So I started looking into like what this is going to do to the population density of, at this point, China. So actually, fun fact, the population density of Vatican City is actually pretty high. It's actually the 7th highest in the world at around 4,700 people per square mile, just because it is such a small place. Which this does mean, of course, my favorite fact about Vatican City is that there are approximately 5.9 popes per square mile, which isn't really relevant, but I just find it really funny.
So they should really just make the Vatican bigger.
Right, yeah, exactly. Just to get that down to a nice even 1. But so the area of China is about 3.705 million square miles, which is, quite big, actually. It's pretty big. The population density there, if we keep that 805 people, becomes 0.0002 people per square mile, which is around 4,600 square miles per person, which is actually a nice little inverse of our 4,700 people per square mile from before, which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
And then as an aside, if we did keep like the same pope density, we'd have 21.86 million popes, which is slightly higher than the population of Madagascar.
Entirely of Madagascar is all popes.
Yep, all popes.
You're probably the only person to ever say that fact.
I really hope so. So I mean, really, as you might imagine, once again, there weren't any issues getting people to fit. As you also might imagine, clearly this is not going to be a sustainable country because the people who live in Vatican City are basically like the Pope, the Swiss Guard, and like, cardinals and stuff. Like, it's basically the people who work in the Vatican, and that's it. There's no industry, there's no like anything. You can't, sustain a country with that few people if it's not, supported by donations to the Catholic Church. So I'm not going to go into like making it work as a country because it's not going to. That's not possible, guys. I'm sorry. What I am going to do is tell you that actually that population density isn't 100% accurate if you look at the population density the way it's laid out in China. Because a decent amount of the population in China is just in like urban areas compared to the amount of space those urban areas take up. So I got a list of the most populous cities in China and the area that their urban center took up. So this isn't like the metropolitan area of a city. This is like just the urban area itself. So this comprised 36 different cities. And the way I made that cutoff was I basically converted the percentage of population in that city to the population of that city into the percentage of the overall Chinese population that was in the city. And then basically took every city where there would be at least 2 people using that same density if we use the Vatican City population. So the way it works out is basically in these 36 cities, we will have 134 people, with the most being in Shanghai, which will have 13.
Ooh, party town.
Well, it is 13 in an area of about 1,550 square miles. So... yes, kind of party towns. And yes, there's actually like, hold on, let me see how many. There are 18 cities with exactly 2 people in them over like 200 to 300 square miles. And basically the way it works out is that these urban areas, the population density there is actually going to be 0.007 people per square mile, or 141 square miles per person, which is roughly the area of the city of Detroit. But what then happens is that, obviously these 134 people are removed from like the non-urban areas. So that density actually winds up being 0.00018 people per square mile, which winds up being approximately an area the size of the Bahamas for each person.
I take the Bahamas.
It's not bad. I mean, to be fair, you're going to have a lot of those areas that are just like sort of up in like the cold mountains in the north of China. And it's just you, lonely and very cold, with no one else around for like a literal other country's distance.
At least you have Jesus, because you're a cardinal.
You could be a Swiss Guard. I kind of wish, I only thought about this once I started like talking about this. I wish that I had figured out after doing like I figured out how many popes we would have. I had figured out how many Swiss Guard we would have. Actually, hold on. I can find it really quickly. So there are 135 people in the Swiss Guard.
So 1 in 8, roughly.
About 1 in 8. So, hold on. I can do this. So, give me a second. So, 135, 117. Quick math. All right.
You're dividing 2 numbers, Ben. Don't get over yourself.
There are 794 Swiss Guardsmen per square mile, which means that in our 3.705 million square miles of China, we would have, 2.9 billion Swiss Guardsmen if we were to keep that same scale.
It's funny. I was gonna look up the size of the U.S. Army as a point of comparison, but I don't really need to at 2.9 billion.
I'm gonna say it's probably smaller. So, in summary, population density can be fun if you don't look too closely at the size of the area you're talking about. And also, yeah, there's not many people in the Vatican. That's kind of all I have, because I didn't have to make them fit very hard. So
you just let them loose and be like, go.
Yep, have
Take
fun,
your
guys.
land.
Live in solitude. Marcus, what did you do?
So I was more on Chris's side of the spectrum, putting a lot of people in a little spot. And what I was specifically looking at was the Caribbean, because 1, it's a lot of small countries right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, they're pretty isolated. So they'll have to get like, the Vatican City can like lean on the other big countries around it to get like resources. The Caribbean can't really do that because they're surrounded by water. So there were a lot of small Caribbean countries. Some of them were less small. So based on how we did the inverse, there was, of the 233 countries, anything in the top 115 most populous countries had their population reduced, and anything below that had their population increase. And anything in like the 200 range had a very big population increase.
Mm-hmm.
So the Caribbean islands that had their population decrease are Nicaragua, Honduras, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Cuba. So we got 5 there. The Caribbean islands / countries that had their populations increase quite dramatically are Montserrat, Anguilla, Caribbean Netherlands, British Virgin Islands, Turks and Caicos, Saint Martin, St. Kitts and Nevis, Cayman Islands, Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, United States Virgin Islands, Aruba, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Curacao, St. Lucia, Barbados, Belize, Bahamas, Guadalupe, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and Panama. So those are all the little countries. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them are ranked 200 or above out of 233 countries. So they get replaced with countries like Russia and Japan and Iran and Kenya and Spain, etc. So the former population of the entire Caribbean put together is 64 million people. And the new population is 1.178 billion. So about 20 times more people. There's a lot of people now in the Caribbean. And I figured Chris would figure out how to fit people in these tiny spaces. So I'm just going to lean on that for that answer. And I was looking at how to feed these people. The average person needs about 4 pounds of food per day to be, satisfied. Like, that's the average. Let's assume, as we do, that all food is chicken nuggets.
Of course. Our unit of food.
Yeah, our typical
Standard.
Food unit is chicken nuggets.
Yeah. Yep.
You need 4 pounds of chicken nuggets per day. That is our placeholder for all the food. So how many chicken nuggets is this? So
We're going to be like expert at chicken nuggets. We're going to know like all the properties of chicken nuggets and stuff.
yeah, exactly. So chicken nuggets have a density of 64 pounds per cubic foot. And my question was, if we're bringing these over by a shipping container, how many chicken nuggets can we fit in each shipping container? The shipping containers being 4.5 feet tall, 20 feet long, and 8 feet wide. No, 4.5 feet wide, 8 feet tall, 20 foot long. So in each shipping container, which is 680 cubic feet, we can fit 45,000 pounds of chicken nuggets, which is great.
Okay.
How many chicken nuggets do we need for our 1.2 billion people? We need 4.7 billion pounds of chicken nuggets. Or if you want to go back to volume, 69 million cubic feet of chicken nuggets.
Per day.
Per day.
Per day.
That's
okay.
a lot.
Which equates to just over 100,000 containers that we need to bring to the islands per day. So the first thing I looked at was, do we have enough boats? The total shipping capacity for all the boats in the world that are on record, which is, I guess if you have a shipping boat, it's on record because they're fucking humongous. Holy shit. The total capacity of all the ships is 20 million containers. So we only need 100,000 containers. We're looking okay. But you have to remember, the trip takes time. You have to act, because it's not just one ship per day. The ship has to do a whole travel routine. It has to go there, has to get back, has to refill, and come back again. So as far as I can tell, taking a rough global average, I gave it 20 days of travel each way. I threw on an extra 10 for maintenance and loading and all the other shit you gotta do with ships. So 50 days per ship per loop. So that brings our global capacity from 20.3 million to 400,000, which is still enough, but we're now using 25% of our shipping boats to feed 15% of the world's population. So I just did it the Caribbean, and it works in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
But if this applies in a lot of places, which I imagine it might, we might run into trouble a little bit down the road. So then the next thing I looked at was whether each island can actually receive enough shipments, if they could actually take 100,000 containers per day of supplies. And so I went to our smallest island, Montserrat, and that one has an area of 39 square miles. And that gives it a rough perimeter of about 25 miles, doing some easy math. So with that and their population of 143 million now, Montserrat would need to receive about 3,141 containers of food each day to keep everyone happy. A medium shipping ship, which is about 700 feet long, can actually carry 1,000 containers.
Oh, really? That's
Wow.
way more than I thought.
Yeah, I was like, oh, well, I guess my answer is fucking working now. So it actually only needs 4 boats a day, which does not run into problems with your 25 miles of coastline. So it's actually not too shabby. You can get your food there if you don't mind that there's a person every 7.5 square feet. And so the next thing I looked at was if you could actually grow the food for all these people, because, we have our farming infrastructure, but we actually are now very suboptimally distributed through the world. For example, while China produces a lot of food right now, all 18 popes and their guards are probably not going to be able to farm very much.
Right.
So I looked at a couple different countries and how much food they grow, and I actually stopped using the US, one, because it's easier to get a little bit of data, and two, the US is actually the most efficient in terms of farming, which I imagine if we have this global, I'm going to call it a crisis, we're going to try to be as efficient as we possibly can. So in the US, 1.5% of the workforce works in agriculture, and the US produces 133 billion pounds of food, which is 133 billion pounds of food, and that's produced by 4.8 million people. So each person can produce about 27,000 pounds of food. And I realize my math might be way off right now because I just realized I probably should say per year in there, and I'm going by per day on everything else. So
Yeah, I've done that before.
what I think was going to happen, I'm going to end my conclusion and then realize that I'm a factor of 365 off. So buckle on, boys. I'm going off the rails. So the first question is how many people are in countries that have quote-unquote farmable conditions? And the way I did this is I assumed that if your population increased by 20 times or more, you no longer have room to farm things. There's I could have picked a few arbitrary points like this, but it actually doesn't matter too much because of how much of the population is in the first 20 most populous countries. So whatever you pick is kind of a rounding error. So this number should actually be fairly accurate. But going by 20 times is my number. It eliminates the 70 most populous countries because they're all going to be on tiny islands with no room to farm. This leaves only 649 people of our 7 billion that are going to be left to farm. So if they all farmed at 27,200 pounds per person, they would produce 8 billion tons of food. We currently produce 4 billion tons of food. So they could produce double what we produce today. So assuming half the people farm, we could feed the world. But now we divide by 365 and we're absolutely fucking fucked.
Right.
Like, oh, yeah, this could work. Oh.
I will say the 4 billion tons of food that we produce each year is a lot more than we theoretically would need to survive. If we have 4 pounds of food times 365 times...
Doing a lot of on-the-fly math today.
Well, it's because I fucked up my math on here, and I'm trying to correct it in real time. 7.5 billion people. That looks like... Divide that by 2,000. 54... 5 million. Okay, so so it'd be 5 million tons of food that we would theoretically need if everyone could perfectly eat 4 tons of food a day. 4 pounds of food per day per person. They could perfectly eat that amount, the exact amount they needed, with no waste. We would need to produce 5 million tons of food, which we could do, but from this and the 365 and the amount of food waste we do, which is actually crazy numbers, I got upset looking at those, so I stopped doing that research. Like,
Yeah.
it's like half these crops die, and then like 30% loss in transport, and then we throw half of it out, and it's very sad. And I think we're starving. We don't have enough farmers. Conclusion: we're fucked. We're way more fucked than what I thought I was when I sat down.
Come on, you can do it. I fit all the people in China into the Vatican City.
Well, all of us is doing some work there.
Yeah, I'm seeing if I can make my number work right now. I can't. This spreadsheet is fucking garbage. What I've done is a one-use spreadsheet that cannot be used to reference, adjust, or change my number.
Throw it out. You've disgraced yourself on the show.
All right, and with that freaking train wreck at the end there, we are going to go into our middle of the podcast break. Hey everybody, Marcus here. We're in our new middle of the podcast break. It sounds a little different because
it's a real thing. It's not a fake ad. It's not music.
Yeah, it's not fake sponsors. We don't have real sponsors still, but it's not fake sponsors now. We're going to take this time to ask you guys to do stuff for us. For example, leave us a review on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher or whatever podcast platform that you have downloaded off the internet that works for you. The reviews are a great way to help our show grow, make us feel good about ourselves, make us feel bad about ourselves, but give us good feedback. Also, you can leave us a not as great review. I ask that you know what? Don't do that. Don't leave us any bad.
Leave us a 1-star review.
only glowing 5 stars review.
He dares you.
Don't, Chris. Leave me alone. This is my break. This is my middle of the podcast break. You stay out of it. Yeah, or you can just leave us a rating. You don't have to write a whole review. That's a pain in the ass. I know. But do that. Subscribe to our podcast so you can be informed and get the new episodes when they come out. And as always, send us your questions. If you have a hypothetical that you just thought of or has been stewing in your mind or keeps you awake at night, send it to us. You can send it to us via email at absurdhypotheticals@gmail.com. You can tweet at us. We're at absurdhype, Hype, hype, or chat with us on Facebook on our group Absurd Hypotheticals, with PALS at the end of hypotheticals, because we're all pals and buddies there. And you can talk directly with us, and we will hopefully respond if any of us are online at the time. And we will try to address any questions or concerns you have about the show.
We made all of our social media stuff different.
Yeah, that was really smart of us.
Yeah, convenient for you guys.
Well, Hypotheticals was a great pun that we found late in the game that we needed to do.
Yeah, I wish we had thought of that one earlier, but oh well.
The Twitter at Absurd Hype was availability issues, I believe.
It was a character limit.
Oh, yeah, fucking Twitter. Get like with the 21st century, Jesus. Get with the 20th century with character limits, come on. Like, I feel like even late 1900s, we're already done with character limits. Love you, Twitter. I don't have a Twitter. Nope, no segues. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. You better not put that in.
Please put that in.
We're just like, nope, can't think of any segues. Go. Question number 2 of the podcast, Absurd Hypotheticals. We're doing it now, which is the second part of the episode after the break, but before the end.
You're good at hosting.
You're great at it.
Which cereal mascot would win in a fight? Round 2! We already done this once before, but
Yes,
now we
we
have selected new mascots. Ben, who is your contender?
Yeah, so we went with animal mascots this time. So my champion is good old Tony the Tiger of Frosted Flakes fame. So Tony, my initial like expectation was that basically, well, so I guess to clarify, so for research, as always, we just watch a bunch of advertisements for this because that's how the research always goes for these questions, and it's always great. Because there's nothing like just sitting around and watching like 90s breakfast cereal commercials for like half an hour.
I forced Sarah to watch like 2 hours of Toucan Sam commercials with me.
That's like some of my favorite research on this show.
It's pretty great, really. Yeah. So I was expecting to have a bunch of sports that Tony plays, and that was gonna kind of be it. But so it turns out actually a lot of the time Tony doesn't actually play sports for the most part. He just kind of like stands around and cheers. Like it's kind of weird actually. He's just like in the background at like a youth sports game, like cheering and like patting the kids in the back and stuff.
Is he the Mr. Satan from Dragon Ball Z of sports?
Apparently, I don't know. Well, so there are some that he actually plays. I actually have the surprisingly short list. So he actually participates in hockey, skateboarding, swimming/diving, rafting, bull riding, baseball, and tennis. But that's kind of it.
No soccer?
No soccer.
I have like a vivid memory of him playing soccer.
So there have been times when he's been near soccer games multiple times.
Soccer adjacent.
But I never actually saw him. I watched like somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes of Frosted Flakes commercials. I never actually saw him play soccer. I was very confused. But there was one thing. So I was sort of striking out in terms of like sort of powers. But then there was one thing that did come up, which is that there was an ad campaign for a little while where it's sort of like one of the sub slogans of Frosted Flakes was "It brings out the tiger in you." And there were a few ads where he got, and they called it supercharged, where basically he would be trying to do something and like fuck it up. And then he would eat a bowl of Frosted Flakes and get like jacked and roar and then just like do something crazy. So like there was one where he was like in a hockey goal and he gets like literally buried in hockey pucks and eats a bowl of Frosted Flakes and then he roars and then like armor shows up on him and then he has like this crazy like cyber hockey stick that he has.
Whoa.
And he's like twirling like a bow staff and like fanging off dozens of pucks at once.
Where did that come from?
Yeah. And then it ends and he goes back to normal.
I'm suddenly less confident about my ability to win this.
Yeah, me too.
well, so we'll get to that. So there's another one where he's trying to set up a hammock between two palm trees that are too far apart.
I remember this commercial.
Yeah, so he eats the bowl of Frosted Flakes, he goes supercharged, and then he like, his arms elongate and he pulls the trees closer together, but not like, he keeps them, they're still in the ground and like living trees. He just like slides them through the ground, like root system and all, to where they're close enough for a hammock. And there's one more where he's on like a really tall diving board and he like, his tail gets scared. I don't know. It was a weird commercial. And he eats a bowl of Frosted Flakes, and then he jumps off the diving board, which is like literally like miles in the air. He jumps off, he turns into a bird, and then back into a tiger, and then a pocket knife, and then back into a tiger, and a fish, and then lands in a pool down below. This one was weird. I don't know. This one actually gets weirder. So he lands in the pool. A bunch of the water comes out because that's how that works, I guess. And then it goes out, it shows him in the pool. And this is where I get very confused because he's fine, but all of his stripes have come off, which is already confusing enough. Those stripes are just like floating in the water. But then, so here's the weird part is that he then covers himself like he's naked, which is really weird because
his stripes are his clothes.
Well, and what's weird is like he distinctly covers his crotch, which is strange because one, this is like a commercial for cereal, so I don't know why they're addressing the fact that Tony the Tiger apparently has junk. And two, he doesn't even have stripes on his crotch. Like, it's not like, like there's nothing there anyway. I don't know. So he can go supercharged to each Frosted Flakes, but all these instances, the effects go away very quickly.
The powers he gets from them is pretty ambiguous.
It's pretty ambiguous. They could be good.
What's funny is I actually saw that commercial because I was watching a compilation and they messed up and put a Tony the Tiger one in there, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have written in my notes, also, Tony the Tiger's stripes are fake.
He's actually not a tiger.
That's one of his weaknesses.
Yeah.
But I also was thinking, I'm like, if he tries to like say that he can transform into these animals, I'm like, only while diving.
Yeah, I'm not going to say he can transform into animals. I'm going to say that he can get some kind of powers from eating Frosted Flakes. But that's really the only thing he had. But there is one other interesting thing about Tony. So as you guys know, that Tony the Tiger used to have a Twitter account.
I did not know that.
Used to. Uh-oh. I've sensed a story.
It was at Real Tony Tiger. And the idea is the account like was Tony. It was like him talking in first person, and it was mostly still, it was, Frosted Flakes PR stuff, but they try to spin it as like, this is Tony telling you shit. Unfortunately, Twitter is on the internet. I don't know if you guys know this. And also on the internet are furries. And furries were very interested in communicating, I guess, with Tony. You can kind of imagine, but a sort of representative message that they would send to Tony was something along the lines of, "Frost my flakes, daddy."
Maybe you should explain what furry is, just because not everyone might know.
So in case you don't know what a furry is a person who, and I want to be very clear, I'm not kink shaming here. Have your kinks, whatever. But furries are people who dress up in animal costumes and pretend that they are an animal, and then traditionally have sex with each other in animal costumes. I guess that's not necessarily 100% part of what furries are, but that is at least a subset of furries. And generally, just in general, being attracted
like a sexual
to
attraction to
anthropomorphic.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't say that word at all.
Anthropomorphic.
There you go, animal. So actually in 2016, the Twitter account addressed this with a tweet that went, "I'm all for showing your stripes, feathers, etc., but let's keep things great and family friendly if you could. Cubs could be watching, smiley face." This stopped nothing, of course, because it's the internet. Things just got worse and worse. And then eventually, in the middle of 2018, the account was converted into just a generic Frosted Flakes PR account. They changed the name to just at Frosted Flakes. It's no longer it's from the mouth of Tony.
This is pretty recent.
Oh yeah. But like that message where they told people to cut out was in January 2016. So for another 2.5 years, people sent like sexually explicit messages and images to Tony the Tiger.
They put up with it for that long.
Yeah.
What do you do like if like that's your job? Like you're responsible for like PRing that Twitter account. Like because a place like Kellogg's is gonna have like a dude, and he's like
right.
Maybe he's in charge of other Twitter accounts, but like his job is to do a good Twitter.
Yeah, it probably was just one guy.
I mean, most of it, they just didn't tweet a whole lot from that account because every time they did, they got a bunch of like furries hitting them up. So
right, because it's like it's not even your fault as like the Twitter man. Like,
oh no, you can't do anything about it.
Oh no, I made Tony too sexy, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. So I think technically, like, if he were to put the call out, you could have an army of furries at Tony's hand if he needed it. So I'm not saying he necessarily has an army of furries, but I think they would do a lot of things for/to him. So that's kind of there in the background. There's a couple more notes. Tony doesn't actually appear to have claws, as far as I can tell. He has basically human hands, and there's no like place for claws to be. He does have opposable thumbs, so that's useful. He could have claws on his like leg paws, because those are cat-like, but it's unclear. Also unclear is whether or not, or sort of like the status of his teeth. I'm a little confused about this part, because so when he just like is normally holding his mouth, he doesn't appear to have any teeth. But he also eats a lot of Frosted Flakes, which require teeth. And when he goes supercharged, you can see like, all you can see is four like the canine teeth, like the pointy ones.
Yeah.
But they're also pretty small. So I don't think he has like full tiger teeth.
So the two advantages that a tiger would have, he doesn't have.
Right, but he is also just like a probably, I'm going to say, 8 foot tall, relatively heavy and athletic tiger man, which explains a lot about why Twitter reacted the way it did. So yeah, that's Tony. Chris, what'd you do?
So my fighter, I looked at Trix. I looked at the Trix rabbit, whose name is actually just Trix, spelled Tricks. And he was originally prototyped as a puppet rabbit, and then he turned into a cartoon later. And his first cartoon appearance was in 1959, and he is currently voiced by Brett Iwan, which is the current voice of Mickey Mouse.
Oh.
Yeah. So that guy has a popular voice, I guess. And like Tony, Trix... I'm going to say Trix the Rabbit because it sounds weird to just say Trix.
Yeah.
But Trix the
My
Rabbit...
boy Trix here.
Yeah. Trix the Rabbit doesn't really have any powers, like superpowers, like in line with what we've had in other fights. But he does, so in most of his commercials, he's trying to like steal, or not steal, he's trying to get Trix. And to get the Trix, he tries to like put on disguises to fool kids, because kids know that Trix aren't for rabbits. So he tries to disguise himself as not a rabbit. So his main thing is disguises. And there's a whole list of disguises that I came up with. I'm going to read some of them. So he's disguised himself as a rock star, a magician, a boy band member, a samba dancer, a sailor, a school kid, a milkman, a clown, a Hawaiian luau dancer, a game show contestant, a male... I said male? Did I say mailman? Mailman.
Definitely a mailman.
One mailman, multiple mailmen.
Yeah. A reporter, a scientist, a bride, like at a wedding, and King Cool, which is a parody of Fonzie.
And they all walk into a bar, and the bartender goes,
Tricks aren't for rabbits.
solid.
Yeah.
Ben's holding up a 10. I can see it from here.
Nailed it.
And then he's also disguised himself as other animals. So there's one commercial where he was looking in through a window at a bunch of kids that were eating Trix at like a party, and they had like bunny rabbit ears on for some reason. And he was like, oh, I want to get into that party because I want the Trix. So he disguises himself as a cat. And then he goes in, and one of the kids goes, silly cat, this party's for rabbits. So he's like, oh, I'm a rabbit. And he turns back into a rabbit. And then he goes for the Trix, and they're like, silly rabbit, Trix are for kids.
Oh, damn. They're just fucking with him now.
I know. So the party is for him, but the Trix are still for kids. And then on another occasion, he had disguised himself as a dog. He actually does this twice. So I don't know about his judgment on disguises, because it fails the first time and then he tries it again for some reason. And then in addition to some of his more cartoony disguises, he has disguised himself as like super realistic people, like live action people.
What?
Wait, what?
So there was one commercial where like
It's like the actor live action person, and then like he anamorphizes into the bunny rabbit when he gets revealed.
Yeah. So there's one where there's like kids on a camping trip, and the dad is like, I think he was like building a fire or something. And then when the kids sneak away, the dad like starts to turn into the rabbit for some reason. So he just was a dad somewhere.
The scariest disguise of all.
Yeah. There's one commercial, it was actually a Got Milk commercial, but he was in it. And he disguised himself as Harland Williams. And if you don't recognize that name, the role that I recognize him from was Dumb and Dumber. He's the cop that drinks the pee.
Got it.
I haven't seen Dumb and Dumber in like 20 years.
So yeah, Harland Williams like sneaks into a convenience store, and they like grabs a box of Trix. And then when he gets home, he unzips himself and he's the rabbit. So yeah.
I thought you were gonna say he unzips his pants and takes a big piss in it.
Why would I say that?
Because he's the guy who drank the piss. Maybe he wants it on his Trix.
Yeah,
Piss
that
Trix.
would make a good commercial for Trix.
Tastes good with anything. Even piss.
And then there was one commercial where he actually got help from Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny helped him come up with a disguise. So Bugs Bunny is like his mentor, I guess.
Oh yeah, Bugs Bunny's disguises were fucking on point.
Yeah, I know. So Trix the rabbit, he's kind of clumsy. He's not always successful, but he has a really, really good mentor to support him. And then there are a few times where he actually does successfully get Trix. He doesn't fail every time. So there's one where he disguises himself as a balloon salesman, and he like floats to the kids or something, and he gets in one bite before they take it away from him. So he got a bite, and whenever he gets the Trix, when the kids say, silly rabbit, Trix are for kids, sometimes he says, and sometimes for tricky rabbits. That's like his slogan that he says when he actually gets it.
I see.
Well, I will say that you can't really use that as a fighting point, because I think both Toucan Sam and Tony the Tiger are much more successful at eating their own cereal. Almost every commercial we get to eat it.
Well, that's just because no one's taking it away from you.
Oh no, Toucan Sam, everyone's taking away from Toucan Sam.
There's one commercial where he disguises himself as a pilot, and he offers the kids like these toy planes, and he uses the toy planes to distract them, and he takes the cereal while he's distracting them. So that's like a sort of sleight of hand thing.
So he's tricky.
Yeah, he's tricky. Hence the name Trix.
That makes sense.
And there is one instance where actually they gave it up to a vote. Like, just to kids around the world whether or not he should get Trix or not. And the results were overwhelmingly yes.
Oh man, I was hoping the answer would be like, and it was overwhelmingly no. Kids were like, fuck that rabbit.
It actually happened twice because there's another commercial where he wins a race. And the prize with the race was Trix. But then the judges were like, I don't know, should we give it to him? Should we not? And they put it to a vote, and the vote was yes again. So people like him. That's actually one of his things, I guess. He has some other skills too. So he was in a race, in a car race. So he won the car race. So he's super good at driving. I don't know if that'll help in the race, in the fight at all. Probably not. He once built his own Trix machine, so he's handy. He can build things. He was an astronaut once, where he said he signed up for quote-unquote moon duty to get Trix. So he's a legitimate astronaut. And then there's one commercial, for some reason, he just turns into a straight-up robot. I don't know why.
Okay.
But he's literally just a robot in that one.
Well, that wasn't him. That was the robot.
No, it was him. It was definitely him.
No, it was a robot disguised as him. If you're if there's a robot of you, it's not you. That's how robots work. That's the whole point.
Or he's just always a robot. I don't know.
Some Twilight Zone shit.
And then I alluded to this earlier, but he's super popular. So like all the kids root for him because they all voted for him. There's a commercial where they were promoting a friendship bracelet, so the kids wouldn't let him have the Trix, but they were like, "We're friends though. We have the friendship bracelets." And then in all the commercials that I watched on YouTube, I scrolled down to the comments, and like every single person was like, "Just give him the Trix. We like him. He deserves Trix." So he has like an underdog story, and everyone likes him. So everyone's rooting for him.
Strong positive feelings of different types for both the Trix Rabbit and Tony the Tiger.
Yeah. And usually, so he doesn't usually get the Trix, but it's not because he's incompetent with his disguises usually. It's usually just because, well, usually his disguise actually works and he gets the Trix, but then he gets too excited about the Trix and that blows his cover. So if Trix aren't involved at all, then his disguises will work. So that's his main thing, is being sneaky, using disguises. I guess people root for him. I don't know. Moral support.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So that was Trix. Marcus, who was your fighter?
I had, as I've mentioned a few times, Toucan Sam, the Sam Man himself, and his mascot cereal, Froot Loops. Toucan Sam is anywhere between 2 and 5 feet tall, depending on which commercial you watch and who he's standing next to. He has a very inconsistent size, which I didn't count as any kind of shape-shifting power. I just said he was like 4 to 5 feet tall. Like
Yes.
4.5 feet seemed to be the most common height.
I didn't expect him to be that tall.
That's a really big bird.
Well, he's like when he'll interact with people and he'll be like on their level, like a short person. So he'll like be walking next to a dude and he'll be like, you know, his top of his head will be like their shoulder height.
I guess I just don't remember any commercials with him next to people.
He's very rarely next to people. I actually had to watch a lot of commercials to just confirm basic facts like that, like how tall he was. It took like maybe like 25 commercials before I found one with people in it. So another thing that took me 12 commercials to confirm whether he could fucking fly or not. I was getting really nervous because like I watched like 10 commercials where he was running away from things and not taking the easy option of flying away. And I got really nervous that he couldn't fly, but he can.
Yeah.
He just chooses not to sometimes. Obviously, pros for Toucan Sam. His nose is very good. So he can smell the Froot Loops wherever they are. But also he can smell other shit. Like he often uses it to sniff out the solution to a problem or find new flavors of Froot Loops. So I feel like if he can find a new Froot Loop with his nose, he can just smell whatever he wants and chooses to smell Froot Loops. What's really funny is also like in a lot of commercials, like the follow your nose commercials, he'll like slap like either a pair of glasses with the nose or just like a fake nose on the person he's helping find Froot Loops. But like then he just leads them there, so like the fake nose isn't like doesn't have any powers.
It's
he
like,
just
oh,
like
you're doing it. Just follow me.
Yeah, by follow your nose, I mean follow my nose.
yeah, you follow your nose. Here's a nose. It does nothing.
Yeah.
And so my thought with the nose, I was like the smelling's very good, but I mean I'm in a fight, so I was like, oh man, can I use like this like because he's a 4 foot like big bird, so like maybe this toucan bill is like basically a hammer I can hit things with.
Yeah, it's not very sharp, but it does have some mass.
Oh, it's
to it.
serrated.
It is?
It's sharp.
Oh.
But looking, the first thing it tells about the bill is the bill is a great model for lightweight construction, full of air pockets and made of keratin. So, like, a 2-foot toucan weighs less than a pound altogether, including the bill. So the bill is not a big, heavy, brute force, blunt force object like I wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
They say it's strong, like it's got that, like, like good natural shape, and they use this shape to build airplanes and shit shape. So it's sturdy, it's just lightweight. So, a little here and a little there. Just a fun toucan fact I'm going to throw out there. One of the benefits they get from having such a big beak is it actually regulates their body temperature. Elephants can actually do this too with their ears, but basically they have a lot of blood vessels on the surface of their beak. Their beak is actually like 50% of their body surface area. And because there's so many small blood vessels out there, they can run the blood through it and emanate like 4 times more heat than they could if they were just like resting.
Mm-hmm.
And they can choose to constrict those blood vessels and conserve heat when they're cold. So it goes both ways. So that was a cool toucan fact. Mm-hmm. So then I watched a whole bunch of commercials where he fights. I was pretty hopeful at first because his whole shtick of commercials is some monster or something will either have a bunch of Froot Loops or steal Froot Loops, and then they go and adventure and get it back from them. It turns out it's basically every single one ends with them just eating the Froot Loops and being like, whoa, I'm a good guy now. Or some other riff on the Froot Loops doing all the work. So it left Toucan Sam without too many powers. So I have my less helpful power section here. He can turn fruit into Froot Loops.
Okay.
There was a commercial where the Froot Loops were so bright and vivid that they sucked the color out of everything else. And then he used the box to shoot a giant rainbow that exploded over the world and recolored it. Which I was like, awesome. It's a big rainbow shooting power that puts the color of things back that they already had.
So if he ever finds himself in a black and white world.
If someone slips a pink sock into the laundry.
He roller skated once. I got that on here.
Cool.
He was pretty good at it. He did a flip. He can survive unprotected in space, which was proven after his 3 nephews built a treehouse spaceship. And he was like, haha, nice spaceship, boys. And then they took off into space, and his foot got like caught in a rope. And he was dragged through the cosmos. And he was like, just kind of like, sarcastically mad at his kids for being, annoying until, a bowl of Froot Loops appeared, and then they got the Froot Loops. So he's a pretty hardy boy. I have on here familiar with tentacles, because I swear to God, there was at least 6 or 7 commercials where either an alien monster, a snake, a magic thing, mummy tape, or something, wrapped him up and, helped restrained him. And then, either commercial would end and be like, oh, can you save Toucan Sam? And then there's, the promotion they're doing that week.
I don't think that's relevant to our fight.
Yeah, so if tentacles pop up, I just know, Toucan Sam is familiar with them. He has the knowledge advantage.
Just in case.
So what actual helpful things does he have? He has 3 nephews that are always with him. They're crafty. They built this they built that treehouse spaceship, which was nice. One commercial, they fought a really big anaconda and tied it into knots, so they can do basic cartoon fighting. And then one commercial, I don't remember which ones they were advertising, but they got they made a stack of Froot Loops that turned into a laser pen, and a bunch of enemies tried to attack them. And first thing they did was they shot the guy with the laser pen and drew a clown outfit on him. And that enemy was so embarrassed he had to run away. And then immediately afterwards, he drew a circle on the ground that created a pit hole that dropped the other 2 into it.
I'm confused about how this pen works.
So it's a stack of Froot Loops.
Okay.
It can shoot out colorful laser light, which can either draw things on your enemies to embarrass them,
Or create holes.
or create holes in the ground.
Interesting.
And so now the last one is not explicit, but it is apparent in a lot of places. And this is my conspiracy theory, that Toucan Sam actually has super strength, but he's very sneaky and very subtle about it. So the first time I noticed it, he uses a grappling hook a couple times, but the first time he uses it, they are exploring, looking for Froot Loops, pirate themed, and on top of this giant pinnacle rock in the ocean, impaled on top of it is a pirate ship with treasure in it. And this thing is at least, conservatively 100 feet in the air. And Toucan Sam just, from base level, just fucking swings the grappling hook all the way to the fucking top and latches it. So he does that in that commercial, and then later in a different commercial, there's a 40-foot statue. He does the same thing. No problem. 40-foot grappling hook throw. And those things are not super light. Never mind the weight of the rope.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm buying this.
More evidence. They're fighting a kraken. Like I said, he's very familiar with tentacles. So he's getting caught up by like this, 50-foot kraken. And to escape, he literally just like takes his feet and pushes the tentacles apart and just like hops out. He's like, nah, I'm good. I don't need this.
Maybe it's just a weak kraken.
It could be just a weak kraken. Next evidence of his great power. Giant abominable snowman, maybe 15, 20 feet tall. Has a bunch of Froot Loops. They steal the Froot Loops from him, and he's chasing them. They manage to trick him, and he trips, and he turns into a giant snowball. But, like, the last shot of the commercial is, like, this 15-foot snowball, like, going right at Toucan Sam, and he just puts his foot out and just stops it dead. Like, just dead in its tracks. Like, very casually, no effort. He pulls out the plug from the bottom of, like, a lake, like, how they have those, like, big dam type scenes, and they unplug the lake and the lake drains. But the plug was, like, twice the size of his body, and it was pretty deep under the water, so it's like, that's also a pretty good feat of strength. And the last one I got here is he carries a police car over a canyon while flying.
That one seems pretty clear, yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of unsure about all those other ones, but the police car is pretty clear.
Yeah, so Toucan Sam, I think, has super strength as his one and only useful power, really.
Well, it's a pretty useful power.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. I didn't say it was a bad one. Oh, and just because I watched a bunch of commercials, a couple things I liked from the commercials that don't really relate to this is they had done a Lifesaver gummy and Froot Loops crossover where they put like a bag of the Lifesaver gummies in the Froot Loops, and I'm like, is it because they look the same? Like, you make fruity circles, we make fruity circles. Let's put them in the same box. Like, what the fuck? Like, why?
Pretty sure Trix did the same thing.
My favorite like phrase they used a bunch. It wasn't even a catchphrase, but there's like a lot of pirate themed adventures that they did, and basically every pirate enemy was like, "Arr, stay away from my fruity booty." Which I just really love the phrase fruity booty.
How is that not a cereal?
How's that not a cereal?
That's one of those
exactly.
off-brand. It's like off-brand Captain Crunch.
Yeah, it's the pirate mascot, and it's all fruity booties. And the last one I have written down, just 'cause I liked it in the moment, was he was like talking to like some like hippie girls. I don't even know. Like, it was like a mid-90s commercial, so it's kind of hard to tell if they were just like awkwardly dressed mid-90s girls or like trying to reference like the past.
Mm-hmm.
But the catchphrase was, "Whatever fruits your loops." I think I want to use that in my daily life now.
Okay, so those are the three fighters.
So now the question is, where are we fighting?
Well, they're all animals.
So what we decided, you don't have to think about it, Chris.
Actually, I forgot what we decided, because we said a bunch of things. I don't actually know which one we decided on.
So we decided to do it. Chris, well, you want to do it in a zoo, and
I
want to do it in a forest. And when we couldn't think of a place, we kind of just default to Central Park as our battlegrounds, which happens to have a zoo and trees in it. So
it's kind of
we decided that was a good battleground.
Best of both worlds.
So our battleground is Central Park, which I don't think gives any of us a particular advantage.
I don't really think any place would give us anyone an advantage.
Yeah. So right off the bat, I almost want to eliminate the Trix rabbit.
Why?
Yeah.
So let's put it this way. You're like, given that you can't really attack very good.
I guess I don't have attacks, but I can hide really good. So I have no way of beating you guys, I guess.
And even the hiding, I think I'm a hard counter because my very powerful thing is sniffing, which really is the like anti-disguising.
This is true.
I don't know if, like, I guess you sniff rabbit.
Yeah, I can smell anything, and I can smell it from fucking far, and then I just follow my nose, and then I punch you into the fucking stratosphere because I'm super strong.
Let me give Chris some cover here, because I'm gonna slightly alter the furry situation. I think furries show up not just because of Tony the Tiger, because there are 3 human-esque animals in Central Park right now, which is a pretty rare opportunity for them. So furries start congregating, which I think is gonna make you want to stop using your nose, maybe a little bit.
I guess you could give him smell cover.
Right. And some disguise possibilities.
And they're all going to be rooting me on because they all like me.
They all like all of us. Let's be perfectly clear here.
So then I guess the question is, how strong is Tony the Tiger and how strong is Toucan Sam in relation to each other?
I'm going to say that when supercharged, Tony might be stronger.
Yeah, it sounds like Tony is like way stronger when he's supercharged, but it's short-lived.
Right, exactly.
I forgot, did we decide in the previous one if you're allowed to eat your own cereal to power up?
I can't remember.
I don't know. I don't think it came up.
May have been irrelevant. I guess Lucky had his charms.
Yeah, Lucky had his charms.
Okay, so I can't take away your Frosted Flakes. I guess I wouldn't take away your only power anyway.
I'm still a little iffy about your super strength.
You're just mad because I want to eliminate you because your guy is not good at, because the Trix Rabbit's not good at flying. This isn't a reflection on you, Chris. This is we have to take this seriously.
There's no explicit, I don't know, announcement that he has super strength.
Right, but there's a mounting evidence. I have 6 commercials worth of evidence that he has super strength.
It's ambiguous.
It's not ambiguous, Chris. You weren't there. You didn't watch 72 Toucan Sam commercials with me. I think that's actually an underestimation. Jesus Christ.
What are we doing with our lives?
All right, so I'm gonna fly around and try to punch you people. What are you guys trying to do?
I mean, I guess my whole strategy would just be to hide for the most part and wait for one of you to kill the other.
Yeah, it's probably your best option.
But then Marcus's whole nose thing kind of throws a wrench in that.
Yeah. So I guess if that's the plan, then what happens when Tony meets Toucan?
Sounds like the start of like a fan fiction.
And it basically is.
I wonder if I just let the furries get you. Because I can fly. You guys can't fly. And there's a lot of furries in Manhattan.
There are a lot of furries in Manhattan.
I mean, I just disguise myself from the furries. That's all I do.
What would you disguise yourself as, a furry?
I could if I wanted to.
That's
He's
still,
a master
no,
of disguise. He can disguise himself as like a real person if he
but
wants.
that still leads to problems. So maybe Toucan Sam just wins. Unless I can get like a quick supercharge off.
Actually, this is interesting because Chris has 2 options. He can either disguise himself as an animal and get molested by the furries, or he can disguise himself as a human and be the only human in a field of furries. A field of furries.
This has a much less clear outcome than the other ones of these we've done.
Yeah.
So what is this biggest feat of strength that Tony the Tiger has done?
I mean, the tree thing is pretty impressive to me.
Yeah.
That takes a lot. Yes.
I'd say that shows that he's stronger than Toucan Sam.
Yeah.
When he has the Fruit Loops or the Frosted Flakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's and they were like full-size trees.
Oh, wait, and also, yeah, they were full-size like palm trees, and also something that actually is kind of a game changer. It's not like he stood between them and his arm stretched out and grabbed them and pulled them in.
Oh, yeah.
So that's actually a game changer with regards to flying.
It's not just strength.
Yeah. So that one in particular is actually pretty bad for you.
Oh, yeah, that's good. So it might be a toss-up, like...
Well, does he have Frosted Flakes with him or not?
I mean,
That's
he's
a good
got
question.
to have.
If he does, I think he wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it's hard to quantify because I don't have specific examples, but I will say Toucan Sam is a hardy boy. He takes a lot of punishment in his commercials because he had like a whole series where he would end up in danger, and there'd be like a good just minute of him getting like attacked by an alien and like the shit kicked out of, mostly by tentacles.
Right.
So again, he's familiar with stretchy arms. I'm gonna throw that into the tentacle category.
Furries and tentacles, we are just the worst parts of the internet right now.
So do we want to throw some percentages on here?
Yeah, we can do some percentages.
Sure.
All right. So what has to go right for Trix Rabbit to win? So one of us there's one of us left.
Right.
And then we have to...
I think if Tony's left, so it depends on how many like supplies of Frosted Flakes he has. Because if he has more than one like instance of superpower, then Trix Rabbit doesn't really stand a chance. But if he doesn't, then Tony doesn't really do anything else.
I mean, he is, if nothing else, an 8-foot tall tiger man.
With no claws or teeth.
Yeah, but I still think against a relatively standard-sized rabbit.
But I could use my disguises in my favor to like manipulate other people to help me.
Right, you could.
He could disguise himself as the sexiest Tony the Tiger and then like go right up to you, and then just as like your 2 silhouettes overlap, he disappears. He goes back to rabbit and disappears.
I mean, I could like disguise myself as like animal control and then like get a whole bunch of animal control people to get you.
That works. Okay, so we're gonna say like 20% chance you beat Tony?
Sure. I mean, definitely Tony has a better chance of winning.
Right, yeah. I was somewhere in like the 20 to 30 range is kind of what I figured.
Yeah, so are we just saying between Trix and Tony right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like 75-25.
That's reasonable. And I feel like it's less for...
Probably less for
Toucan
Toucan
Sam. Yeah. like 85-15
Yeah.
or something.
Just because of the nose thing.
Yeah, let me get a spreadsheet up so I can actually
God.
multiply out these odds. So if we have Trix versus Tony, that's 0.75, 0.25, and then Trix versus is
Toucan.
Toucan. That's my guy. So it's 0.85 and 0.15.
All right. And then,
So then
the question is,
we
what
have to
are
figure out just Tony versus Toucan Sam.
I think.
So yeah, this is.
I think
do
Tony
think you have
has
the
the
advantage.
edge slightly.
It depends on how much of a beating Toucan Sam can take before Tony's gas runs out.
Right.
So it's probably like.
I mean, proportionally though, his strength I think is just completely unmatched.
I don't think I'm too far off. Like I'm like one transformation down by by Dragon Ball Z standards. Like I'll get punched through the mountain, but I'll like stand up at the end of it.
I
maybe?
mean, so your strongest feat was carrying the car, probably, right?
Yeah, it might be throwing the grappling hook 100 feet in the air, but one of those.
And I think compared to the pointing the trees is way more impressive.
Yeah, it's more about the timing. Like if I can avoid the arms,
Right. It's
grab the
exactly.
tentacle arms.
Was there any indication of how long the Frosted Flakes lasts?
I mean, it's tough to say because
The commercials are like 14 seconds long.
right. Well, and like it was always quick, but it also always lasted as long as he needed it to in that situation. So I don't know how much of it was it wearing off and how much of it being just like he was done with it, so it ended. You know.
Yeah.
But like those instances were always like a few seconds. You know.
I'm feeling 55% Tony, 45.
I was gonna say 60-40. So
Yeah, I
I
feel like
think
60
also just in terms of like if it's 75-25 Tony Trix, that's I mean part of that is just like Tony is out of cereal.
I definitely don't think it's 55-45.
I like 60-40.
60-40 sounds more reasonable.
All right.
I think you're a little overconfident with Toucan Sam.
It's less about what he did and about just how fucking casual he was. He's like those anime characters who have just been like the high schooler who's been hiding his strength the whole time, and just like the subtle things like, oh, he just happened to not fall off that thing when he got hit by the ball or something.
Right.
All right, so now I have all this. So now I should theoretically be able to do math.
I don't know. Your performance on math in the first question is questionable.
This is where we just insert the Batman to the Batcave sound and then show up with math. Do you
You don't have the math yet.
Nope.
I don't, but that's where you can pause. All right, I have the percentages.
All right.
Through the process of simple multiplication, I have the percentages. Assuming Tony and Toucan fight, which is what I think is going to happen. Tony the Tiger has a 45% chance of winning. Toucan Sam has a 34% chance of winning the whole shebang. And the Trix Rabbit has actually a 21% chance.
That's not bad.
It's not bad.
So there it is. That's the final verdict.
Yeah.
Scientifically accurate.
Yeah.
Cannot be disputed.
Nope.
We dare you to try.
Unless you have another commercial you haven't seen. If we missed a big power on any of these guys, let us know. Send us a message on our Facebook group, Absurd Hypotheticals. Or send us an email, absurdhypotheticals@gmail.com. And tweet at us at absurdhype, HYPE, hype. Did the plugs.
That was probably the smoothest segue you've ever done.
I was very impressed right there.
I was like, wait, we're in the end bit?
We're in the end bit, and this is the part where I get to do the questions for next week. And it's going to be just smooth as molasses from here on out. Because our questions for next week are, what if mankind invented teleportation? And describe your elaborate plan to take over the world.